Welcome to How to Play GODSGLOOM Part 2. If you haven't seen Part 1 of this 3-part series, we strongly suggest going back and familiarizing yourself with Gloombase, Warslate, and the GODSGLOOM app. In this video, you'll learn the basic turn structure and combat of GODSGLOOM. The game begins with a wager. Both players secretly choose how many command seals they are betting for the initiative. The player who wins this wager will be choosing which player will be player A and which one will be player B. In this showdown, the player who bids more wins, but victory comes at a cost. The player who wins the wager must pay its opponent's bid number in their command seals. In this game, the Hordes player wins the wager and chooses to be player A. Player B then can choose to redeploy their unit into a valid position or switch positions of 2 friendly units. After redeploying, player B can choose to change facings of all of their units. After that, player A can choose to do the same. With all of that done, the game fully begins. A match of GODSGLOOM is split into 3 rounds with diminishing amount of activations. First round, each player has 5 activations. On second round, they have 4, and on the final round, they have 3. A round is split into multiple sequences: start of round sequence, magic sequence, ability sequence, activation sequence, end of round sequence. With the wager to see who has the initiative done, the start of round sequence is over. For now, we'll be skipping magic and ability sequences to jump straight into the meat of the game, the activation sequence. Player A picks a unit to activate and marks its activation slider. Any unit's activation is split into 2 parts: movement and action. The Horde's Berserkers are moving in to secure the objective area. With the speed stat of 2, the unit moves up to 2 hexes. With the movement part done, player A now can choose which action to perform. There are 4 action types: melee attack, focus action, muster action, skill action. With no opposing units in melee range for the Berserkers, player A chooses the focus action to generate a boost token for the unit. The boost token remains on the unit until it is chosen to be used. With that, player A's first activation ends and player B's first activation begins. Player B's first activation are the Mounted Nobility Cavalry unit. The unit has a speed of 3 and could move around the Berserkers to attempt a flank, but that would make them enter the Berserkers' engagement zone. Each unit projects their engagement zone from their front arc. If an opposing unit would ever enter the engagement zone, they immediately stop and are now bogged down in combat with that unit. With no way of finding a more advantageous avenue of attack, the Mounted Nobility performs a head-on charge against the Berserkers. Units in melee combat use 2 statistics: offense and guard. The statistics display 2 numbers with corresponding colored cubes. Those are the number of attack and defense dice the players will be rolling in their melee combat roll. The attacking unit is using its offense statistic, while the defender is using its guard statistic. There are many modifiers that can change the amount of dice that are being rolled for a particular combat. In this instance, the Mounted Nobility unit was not engaged in combat at the start of its activation and moved before attacking in melee, thus performing a charge which adds an additional attack die to their offense dice pool. The unit's special ability charge bonus also generates another die to the dice pool whenever the unit performs a charge. With these modifiers, the Mounted Nobility has 8 attack dice on their roll instead of the regular 6. The Berserkers are using their guard statistic and decide to use the boost token to enhance their roll by adding both an additional attack and defense die. Now the Berserker unit boosts up their guard to a mighty 4 attack and 4 defense dice pool. With dice pools calculated, both players roll off. In GODSGLOOM, any roll of 3 or more is considered a success. An attack roll that has 2 or more 6s is considered to have a critical hit, so the player can roll an additional attack die and add it to the pool. However, when defense dice are rolled, it's 1s that a player should be looking for to gain a critical. Both players roll off and start counting up their successes. Mounted Nobility has scored 4 successes on attack and 2 on defense, while the Berserkers succeeded 2 attacks and 2 defenses. However, out of the failed defense dice, 2 are showing a 1. With that critical, the Hordes player rolls an extra defense die and succeeds with a roll of 4. The defense successes counter any of the opposing attack successes, so the final results of this combat are 1 damage to the Berserkers, and the Mounted Nobility come out unscathed. After the combat roll, players check who won the combat. The unit that suffered the most damage is considered the loser. If it's a stalemate, the attacking unit is considered the loser, as there is much shame in failing to do damage when you're on the offensive. In this case, the Berserkers have lost the combat and lose 1 morale as a consequence. The winning Mounted Nobility can now choose to press the advantage and push the Berserkers back and pursue them, changing the positioning of the units on the battlefield. When a unit is being forced back due to losing melee combat, the player controlling it chooses the hex where the unit is going to retreat to. The retreating unit must face the hex it is retreating from. The combat winner that is pushing the unit then must pursue it by stepping into the hex that the opponent retreated from, and then must face the retreating unit. This shift in battle concludes the Banners of Honor player's first activation. For their next activation, the Hordes player decides to use a Gambit. Gambits are powerful one-time use abilities that have a tactical and a strategic use. Right now, we'll explore the tactical side of Gambits. The chosen Gambit is Spearhead Rush, which allows the player to perform a full activation with 1 unit and then perform a move with another. In this case, a unit of clan warriors rush in to battle the Mounted Nobility. Because the Berserker unit has only the Mounted Nobility unit engaged with them, while their allied clan warriors are also engaging the opponent, the clan warrior's offense roll will be enhanced with an additional attack die. This is the melee assist bonus. The clan warrior's roll succeeds most of its attack dice, but fail the defense dice. Mounted Nobility, on the other hand, have a terrible roll and cannot let that resolve. The Banners of Honor player uses one of their command seals to re-roll the entire roll. After the re-roll, the odds look much better for the defenders. Even though the clan warriors were the aggressors, they lost this combat, dropping down to 1 health point. When units have only 1 health point left, they receive the weak token, which acts like an inverse of the boost token. The next roll the unit performs in combat receives a -1 penalty on attack and defense dice. Even when defending, the Mounted Nobility could choose to push the clan warriors back, but opt not to, as then they would be surrounded by enemy units, providing more opportunities for a melee assist. With the combat done, the Gambit is finished resolving with the 2nd Clan Warriors unit closing in on the front line. The Banners player decides to move in their Realm Guardsmen to exploit an open flank on the wounded Clan Warriors. After the movement, but before any attacks are made, the Hordes player interjects by using a command seal to activate Counter Maneuver. With this maneuver, the player moves one of their units 1 hex so that they would be engaged with the unit that just finished its movement before Counter Maneuver was activated. With this, the unit of Clan Warriors will support their outflanked allies with a defensive melee assist bonus. The combat begins, and as the Realm Guardsmen attack from behind the opponent's front arc, the defending Clan Warriors do not roll any attack dice in their guard pool and lose 1 defense dice due to being outflanked. However, the 2nd unit of Clan Warriors are performing a defensive melee assist, so they do gain an additional defense die to their pool. Unfortunately, the weak token negates that bonus. The roll is made, and while blocking some of the damage, the Clan Warriors fall in battle. Even when there's no opponent to push back, the Realm Guardsman can still choose to occupy the opponent's hex after winning the combat. This marks the end of the round, as both players exhausted their activations for this particular round. Now all that is left is to calculate scored objectives and perform the God's Push. The Banners player controls the objective area, so they receive 1 soul shard, putting them in the lead. During God's Push, all unengaged and unactivated units can move up to 1 hex and can change facing. This way, even units that you didn't get the chance to activate can move up the field and possibly influence the game further down the line. With the start of a new round, the players bid again to see who goes first, but this time, the Hordes player is the underdog due to having less soul shards than the opponent. With the underdog bonus, the Hordes player wins the bid without a wager and chooses to go first again. The magic sequence begins and all caster-type units gain magic dice equal to their mana pool. The casters then use those dice to cast spells from the chosen spell lore. The shaman has chosen psionics as its spell lore and is attempting to cast telekinetic push on the realm-ranged guard that threatened to shoot him this round. Telekinetic push has a mana cost of 1, so it requires the caster to use at least 1 magic die in the roll. The player can choose to spend as many dice on a single spell as the caster's mana pool has mana in it. Additionally, the player can choose to overcast a spell once per round, adding an additional magic die to the roll. Since the current spell being cast is of high importance, the player does just that and overcasts the spell, adding a different colored die to the magic roll so that it can be distinguished from the rest. A failed overcast die will inflict 1 damage to the caster. Luckily, both of the dice succeed, and the realm-ranged guard are displaced in such a way that they no longer have line of sight to the shaman due to the grand melee of the front line. With the remaining magic die, the shaman attempts to cast confusion on the mounted nobility unit, but fails the roll. Since this was not an overcast die, there are no consequences for this failed spell. The Banners of Honor player does not have any caster units in the army, so the magic sequence is over. During the ability sequence, it is the Hordes player that doesn't have any units with abilities, so they pass the turn to the Banners of Honor player. The Realm-Ranged Guard has 2 abilities. Both are ranged attack, but one deals more damage, while the other adds a slow effect on the enemy unit. Due to all of the opposing units in line of sight to the Realm-Ranged Guard being already engaged in combat, the more deadly option is chosen. The Realm-Ranged Guard deal 4 automatic successful hits, as listed on the ability, while the clan warriors that are being targeted roll their guard stat without any attack dice. With 1 damage point dealt to the clan warriors, the ability sequence is over and we go back to activating units. You have now witnessed the basic gameplay loop of a GODSGLOOM match. With this basic knowledge, you could already play a match of GODSGLOOM, but there are deeper and more advanced mechanics we need to talk about. Join us next time in our last video to find out about the advanced mechanics and systems of GODSGLOOM, such as the momentum mechanic and the strategic use of Gambits.